remember if I cried or if I laughed. I just remember I want my money back. I can't remember if it sucked or if I had a blast. All I know is at the end of the show, when the credits rolled, it said Filmtopiacast 3000.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Filmtopiacast 3000. I'm your host, Greg McIver, and with me is my co-host...
Oh, Nicky Boom Boom.
Oh no. You've become a ghost, haven't you? Oh wait, no, you're just sitting right next to me going, ooh. You're not a ghost, are you?
Well, I might be a ghost.
Dun, dun,
Dun!
Anyway, on this wonderful episode of Filmtopiacast, we're going to talk mainly about the last debate between Obama and Romney, because I'm pretty sure that's what everyone wants to hear.
I thought we were gonna talk about the debate between the two halal cart selling guys on the corner.
Oh, I almost forgot.
Because they're having a bit of a turf war.
Really?
About who was gonna sell falafel on that corner.
Were they like slinging falafels at each other?
I mean, we could pretend that they were. That would be interesting for
Oh,
an episode.
totally.
Yeah.
Well, actually neither one of those things sounds very interesting. Let's talk about Halloween and scary movies.
Halloween is one of my very favorite subjects.
Really?
Yes, it is.
Why is that?
Well, I was born on that day, so...
Ah!
Dun, dun, dun!
Interesting, very interesting. So you've grown up with this holiday as being doubly special. It's the reason you're here, and it's just a very fun time of the year.
Sure, it's the spookiest and most cool holiday.
Yeah.
And everybody celebrates on my birthday, as is proper.
Because, of course, it's great when the masses come out to celebrate one's coming into the world.
Right, I really do appreciate it. Everybody out there, I really do appreciate you throwing such cool parties on my birthday every year.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. Very cool. Halloween, the time for scariness, scary movies, scary decorations all around, scary costumes.
Candy corn and Jameson.
I've never actually tried that combination. Any good?
I don't know, but I can only assume, because they're two great tastes, that they'll taste great together.
This is your job this coming Halloween to test that out.
Fantastic.
Tell me if that tastes good.
I will.
I want to know. Our listeners want to know.
Well, there's a lot of fine things that we could talk about the holiday.
Yes,
being that we are Filmtopiacast 3000,
yes,
we probably should focus on the horror movie angle, which is really, to me, the best psych-up medicine for Halloween.
I don't want to talk about movies anymore.
What do you...
I'm kidding. No, absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Well, no, I mean, we could talk about the stock market.
No. I was merely kidding. No, absolutely. Horror films, best possible way to psych yourself up.
Because the Dow Jones fell...
No!
No, okay, fine.
No!
All right.
Horror movies.
All right.
Horror movies. I don't want it to sound like I'm saying horror movies. Although there are some horror movies.
There's a little bit of Venn diagram layover as
yeah.
far as that goes, but
That's
we'll get to
true.
that, I'm sure.
Of course, absolutely.
So, what is it about horror movies that is so delightful?
Well, I don't know, man. Just being scared, it's just such an adrenaline rush, So first of all, there's that. And then with horror films, what's fun about them is there's a lot of awful ones out there, and there are a lot of good awful ones. Should say that. Sure. It was my mission a few years ago to find sort of like the perfect bad horror film, and it was every day I watched a different really bad one, and it kind of wore me out, and so I abandoned it because there's a lot of really bad horror films out there, and there are some good some good bad horror films if you can follow my line of reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, let's do an example here. What is to me, some good bad horror movies. And one of the other reasons besides, as you mentioned, being scared by a movie or by an experience can be great.
Of course, absolutely.
It's a new flavor to try.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also being entertained in the attempt of someone to scare you.
Yes.
There's something really to be said for that too. And much for the same reasons that I enjoy punk rock, I really enjoy movies like the trauma movies. That it's just like, you know, somebody got a camera and got some of their friends together and they're like, hey, we're making a movie. You know, like get that creature effects guy and we don't need CGI. Let's just have a good time with this, you know?
I definitely respect that. I have not really seen many of the trauma films, unfortunately.
But you know what I mean, like in that spectrum.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. I don't know, like a good bad horror films, like the sleepaway camp movies.
Right.
Actually fall in line with that. Oh, the first one is you're pretty much your standard stalk and slash, but with a sort of a hilarious twist ending to it. But then the second and third one, they almost went an Evil Dead route with it. And they kind of realized what they were doing, and they decided to have fun with the main character who's doing all the killing. So they put an interesting spin on her. Like she was more funny than she was menacing. I mean, some of the deaths were still, you know, gruesome and horrific, but at the same time, it was being done by a very kooky, you know, person,
right.
Which I kind of respected that, because again, it's like what you said. They realized you know, films like that in the trauma movies, they know what they're doing. You know, it's like
sure. Sometimes you just want to see something like grotesque and a little transgressive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to scare you. It just needs to like conjure up some darker, spookier images.
Oh no, absolutely. So yeah, the sleepaway camp movies, specifically the second and third one, would be prime examples of that. There's so many out there we can name.
I would put up a few, including like just to go back to trauma real quickly. I remember you know, gathering up with my friends and going to the video store back when that was a thing.
The video store.
And going to Tommy K's Video was the big chain in Connecticut, and we would go and get like Igor and the Lunatics is the name of one of the trauma movies. And it's just about a group of like Manson family-esque lunatics that go around killing people, and they're like almost the heroes of the movie. It's
interesting.
And it's just a wild, kooky ride. There's that. Trauma has done so many good ones, including good bad ones. They just did one called Poultrygeist pretty recently.
Yes.
About a haunted occurrence at a fast food chain.
Oh, that's awesome.
And some PETA people get involved. And I shouldn't fail to mention Tromeo and Juliet.
Yes, one that I have heard of for many, many years, but have not seen it. So.
And of course, you know, the Toxic Avenger. I don't know if. I guess it's a horror movie, not really though.
It's horrific.
It's about a grotesque superhero.
Right.
So maybe that doesn't count. But you know what I mean. It's just like that. In a way, you could like point a finger and call it bottom of the barrel. But they're just so fun. And if you're into seeing some cool creature effects and maybe some boobies and and some shameless violence, then you're in the right place if you pick up a trauma movie.
I think films like that and the sleepaway camp movies that I was talking about, and one that I'm going to talk about in just a second here, the difference between the good bad and the bad is mainly this. The good bad horror films, like we said, know exactly what they are, and they're out to achieve a result, which is to make a fun movie. You know?
Yeah, have fun with
it. It's more about the fun than the actual scariness. The bad ones are the ones that just fail at their ultimate goal, which is, you know, they are really trying to scare you, but it just doesn't work, and it takes itself, and those movies take themselves too seriously, and they're not even fun, you know.
Yeah.
It's just it's a chore to watch them. One movie that I really liked that it just got shat upon when it came out.
What's that?
Is House of a Thousand Corpses.
Oh, I love House of a Thousand Corpses.
House of a Thousand Corpses is such a fun movie.
Yeah, it's Rob Zombie's love letter to
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Absolutely.
I mean, and it just... People seemed confused by it, and confused and angry, like, what is he doing? And I'm like, what do you mean, what is he doing? It's very apparent what he's doing, and he's doing it with so many fun characters, you know, Captain Spaulding, and then
Baby.
Baby Sherry
awesome.
Zombie is fantastic. And you know what, as much as I like the Devil's Rejects, I like that movie a lot, I actually don't like it quite as much as House of a Thousand Corpses because I think you lost a little bit of the fun there.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with that.
It took a more serious turn, and again, the movie is fine. It actually was much more well received than House of a Thousand Corpses,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought it lost, like, Baby wasn't nearly as fun as she was in House of a Thousand Corpses. She got very serious.
Well, it took those characters out of the home, which is where they have their power, really.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the horrific thing about House of a Thousand Corpses is that it's a horrific family. It's like an Addams family to the nth degree.
Yeah.
And they just get their jollies by killing people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're powerful in their home because they know the terrain. They're out in the remote area. Even the cops don't seem to be able to do anything against them.
Right. And there's something called Dr. Satan.
Dr. Satan, yes.
That lives underneath the house.
Right.
I guess, checks up on them every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking your medicine. But
but then when you get Devil's Rejects, it's still an entertaining ride, but you're taking them out of their power spot.
No, absolutely. And again, certainly not, criticizing the movie. It was a very fine movie, with what it was doing. It did take the characters some interesting places, which, again, if you're going to do a sequel, that's what you kind of need to do, is to do something different with them. So again, not criticizing it, saying it's a bad movie, but I think just the first one, House of a Thousand Corpses, was a little bit more enjoyable for me.
Oh, I enjoyed both of them very much, and, that's an example of kind of like what I was saying with Igor and the Lunatics of, sometimes the horrific thing about these sorts of movies is putting you in the shoes of the monster.
Right.
As opposed to the victim that's being chased by the monster and, like, giving you that kind of sick and twisted perspective on the world.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting point of view. These people in Devil's Rejects and House of Thousands, they're, like, the most awful people on the planet.
Yeah, but they're fun.
But they're fun, and by the end of Devil's Rejects, you almost feel a little sorry for them, too, when stuff goes bad for them.
Yeah.
So I actually think that's the mark of a pretty decent filmmaker, if they can actually do that. And make
twist up your emotions to, like, make you sympathetic to somebody that you never would be sympathetic for in real life.
Absolutely. So, growing up, you loved Halloween, you loved scary movies. What were, like, aside from the Troma movies, what were some other staples of your, like, childhood as far as scary movies?
3 big ones come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 of them are Stephen King stories. I think Stephen King's somebody that's really easy for a lot of people to pick on because he's very prolific and, there's the Family Guy joke of, like, where he, like...
Oh, yeah, my next story is about,
a haunted lamp!
A haunted lamp! Oh, you're not even trying anymore, are you? When can I have it?
But there's no denying Stephen King is one of, like, the voices of the last... One of the greatest literary voices of the last 100 years,
I would think,
Absolutely. And just his prolific and... has so much impact on horror.
Oh, absolutely.
I wrote, just to give myself a brief shameless plug, I'm an astrologer, guys, and I wrote an astrology article about the different ways that this particular astrological pattern is going to bring about a lot of fear.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do in my writing for astrology is I connect astrology to pop culture stuff, and so I wrote a big article about fear in horror movies and what specific types of fear can manifest. And I wrote this big, like, 7,000 word article, 11 pages long, and I was surprising myself how many times I brought up Stephen King. It was like just all over the map. He's all over the map, man.
Of course, no, he's the man.
And 2 of my very favorite ones by him are It.
Yes.
Which. Not a movie, it was a miniseries.
It was a made-for-TV miniseries.
But whatever, I own it on DVD.
Yeah, no.
It's a feature.
Yes.
There's that, and starring the very amazing Tim Curry.
Oh my God.
Which apparently I read recently that's his real hair when he's Pennywise.
What?
I don't know how that's possible.
I don't know how that's possible either. But I mean, regardless, he's a terrifying.
One of the greatest horror villains for my money of all time. Really, just. This is the story with my story with the miniseries. It is that, I was about 6 years old when it came on TV, and the way that my family room was set up, it was the TV was facing the hallway, facing down the hallway, and my room was at the end of the hallway. So my parents put me to bed. They're like, "No, you're not watching this. This is scary.
Mm-hmm.
You can't watch this." and they stayed out in the living room and watched it. Well, being the little sneaker that I am, I brought my little blankie and pillow and like camped out at the end of the hallway where I had a perfect line of sight for the television, and I was enthralled by Stephen King's It, but I was also pants poopingly scared.
Of course. No, that's a terrifying movie for a young person.
Absolutely terrified by Pennywise the Dancing Clown. So that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Pet Sematary. Just as like an example of like a solid horror movie. And one of the things I think is most interesting about Pet Sematary is that there are a lot of good scares.
Yeah.
And a lot of horrific concepts, like the child being brought back from the dead, and like, you know.
Right.
Basically in Pet Sematary, if you somehow have not seen it, it's anything you bury on this specific spot, pets mostly,
right.
Come back to life as like evil, horrible versions of themselves.
Yeah. Dead is better.
Yeah.
Dead is better.
And but one of the interesting things about Pet Sematary to me is that the scariest scene in the movie has nothing to do with the supernatural.
Right.
It's there's flashbacks to the wife of the family has a sister that passed away from spinal meningitis, and
right.
in the flashbacks she shows this like horrible contorted form of her sister just screaming at her in like pain and anger. It's just terrifying.
It's pretty terrifying. And even at one point, she has a delusion or a hallucination where the sister is in this room with her.
Yeah.
And she just runs right up to the camera, and it's just, you know, as a young person, you're just sort of like, ah! You know, when that happens. So it's, I can definitely agree with you there. That's a terrifying moment. And so, yeah, no, those are two solid movies to kind of grow up with.
And then one more I wanted to mention, which I think we can both agree on. Easily is just the Evil Dead series. Evil Dead series, man. And kind of what we were talking about before with there are good bad horror movies and there are good horror movies and there are bad horror movies. I think Sam Raimi found this like wonderful sweet spot between the like we're gonna just grab our friends and have a good crazy time of it.
Right.
He found a good spot between that and making like an artfully done horror movie. And he has this weird combination of humor and scariness that nobody really seems to replicate nobody seems to be able to do it.
Because it's so hard, because either one will normally kind of eradicate the other.
Yeah.
It's a really fine line that you have to walk, but he somehow walks it with a grace and style that few other filmmakers, if any, are able to do.
Absolutely. When other people try to do it, it feels really like inconsistent and jarring. But when he does it, it's just seamless. And you could be laughing out loud at one moment you could be both at the same time laughing out loud and terrified of a moment in The Evil Dead 2 or in Army of Dark. Well, maybe less so in Army of Darkness, but mostly in Evil Dead 2, I would say. Like especially that one scene where everything in the house starts mockingly laughing at him, and the moose starts laughing at him too, and he's just spinning around. The camera's spinning from his vision, and he's just cackling maniacally at all the furniture and everything, laughing at him in the room. That's scary, but it's also really funny.
No, it's a great combination, and Raimi, nobody else really is able to do it, at least that I've seen for my money, and he was able to recreate the magic, I think, with Drag Me to Hell.
I think so, too. I was impressed with Drag Me to Hell.
Drag Me to Hell was
very pleased with it.
A return to form, and
a lot of people were confused by it.
A lot of people were really confused by it that didn't know Sam Raimi's previous work, and were just like, oh, that didn't really scare me. It was actually really silly in a lot of parts. I'm like, yes! Exactly. That was the whole point. Just the funeral scene where I don't remember the scenes exactly because I've only seen the movie once, but all I know is that at some point she ends up just upending the body from the coffin and it falls on her. Just everyone's horrified, but it's just done in such a humorous manner. Like, it's a horrific moment, but you're laughing your ass off at this poor, actually, I think we've discussed this before, the character in that movie is not actually very likable.
No, I mean, they paint her like she's, oh, poor her, but really, if you sit back and, like, analyze the movie, like, wow, this girl deserves to get dragged to hell. She's not a very nice person.
She's a little selfish.
Yeah.
She's a little selfish. I mean, she even considers, like, trying to hand off the curse to this, like, elderly, decrepit man in the diner, you know, and it was
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
I guess her idea was, well, he seems to be in a lot of pain. Let me just go ahead and put him out of his misery. Put him out of his misery by having him get dragged to hell, you
No.
selfish wench? No.
That's ensuring his misery.
Exactly. Oh, no. But the movie itself is a fantastic return to form, as I said before. Equal parts horror and comedy, just done insanely well. So, yeah, if you've got to have a movie to kind of stick with in your childhood, horror-wise, that's definitely one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
What are some of your favorite childhood?
I'm glad you asked. I grew up with the Nightmare on Elm Street series personally.
Of course.
I am a Fredhead. That's what people like me are called. We're Fredheads. Yeah, I grew up watching the Freddy Krueger movies. I thought he was absolutely phenomenal. I saw the first one at a very, very young age. I saw the last half of the first one, and just there were so many elements in it that just terrified me as a little kid, like the blood coming up from the bed, and at one point she's talking into the phone, and then Freddy's just like, "I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy," and his mouth appears on the thing and just gives her a little lick. You know, it's just things like that as a child terrified me. And so I really became fascinated with the character of Freddy Krueger, and I made my dear older brother, go out and buy me all of the other sequels over the course of a period of time. And one of the reasons why I loved Freddy so much was the fact that, and this is actually one of the reasons why people criticize the Nightmare on Elm Street series so much, is the fact that he became funny as the series went on. And I actually appreciate that. Yes, you lost a lot of the scariness when that happened, but I think it was replaced with a very fun, character at the same time. So just, again, growing up with the movies, I've always really enjoyed all of them except for the second one. The second one is awful.
I was gonna say, within that franchise, within that series, you have your good horror movies. You have your, like, the first one.
Yeah.
And I would put maybe like New Nightmare, which is kind of a rehash of the first one.
Yeah, but it done in a much different way. But I would definitely say in the good category.
You do have some good bad ones in there too.
I think 4 and 5 and 6 are definitely your good bad ones.
Yeah.
They're not high art, but they're a lot of fun to watch, and it actually.
The sixth one was in 3D.
The sixth one was in 3D. God bless them for going that route.
I guess I shouldn't laugh since that's like a thing again now.
It is a thing again
whatever.
now. Yeah. But yeah, those are the good bad ones.
And then you have 2, which is bad.
Which is incredibly bad.
I've only seen one scene from it, and I was like, I want nothing to do with this movie.
I do not blame you. To take the idea and the character of Freddy Krueger, a malevolent force that can invade your dreams, and to say, no, we want to take that force, and we want to slap him in the body of a human being so he can kill people like a normal person does. It's like, why the hell would you want to do that?
Why would Freddy want to do that?
Why would he want to do that?
He has so much fun gleefully murdering people in their dreams.
Makes absolutely no sense at all. And it's not even the gay overtones of the film that ruins it for me, although there are a lot of gay overtones in that film. That's not the problem. The problem is the idiocy of the story. Is just, it makes absolutely no sense why Freddy Krueger would want to do that, and it makes for kind of a boring movie too. I don't know. Yeah, so that's sort of the forgetful one. I would even say Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 is actually a good one.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Dream Warriors just kind of.
Dream Warriors is top notch.
Pretty great.
It kind of closed the chapter. Of this, or kind of closed the book on the story that the first movie was trying to tell. And then when you get to 4, 5, and 6, they sort of started telling their own stories with those movies, although still connected with the first ones. Again, the some of the later sequels were silly. Again, they're not really scary, but again, they're a lot of fun, I think. I understand people's point of view when they criticize them. Even Wes Craven famously said when he was going into making New Nightmare, he said, I sat down and I watched all of the Freddy movies before making this because I just wanted to get an idea of what this character had become. And he said by the time I finished with the 6th one, I had no idea what the story was about anymore. I was absolutely confused. And granted, they can be a little convoluting, but I appreciate the creativity of them, though. They might have fallen short a little bit in some areas, but there was definitely some creativity there with what they were trying to do with the character, and so Yeah, Freddy was just somebody that, grew up with and, love him to death. I still, love Freddy Krueger. I wish they would make more Freddy movies. Although, please don't make any more like that one Jackie Earl Haley remake that they just did, which was very disappointing.
Which I don't know, like, I didn't see the whole movie. I don't think that that's Jackie Earl Haley's fault.
No, it's not. It's not his fault, but again, I mean, they were sort of doomed.
I mean, nobody's gonna be Robert Englund.
Yeah, they were sort of doomed from the beginning by not having Robert Englund, somebody who he is Freddy Krueger. That is, and everybody knows Freddy's face, and to now have this other guy, sure, it's the same iconic sweater and hat and glove, but this is somebody that looks completely different, who's acting completely different. In a movie that wasn't very impressive story-wise or scare-wise, for that matter. It was mainly a series of jump scares, and I was really hoping, seeing as how technology has finally caught up with people's imaginations, that they were going to be able to do some interesting things with the dreams, and they start to, and then they never really go anywhere with them.
It's funny how, that you say that we now have access to all this technology and CGI, and there's so many movies that make you just wish that, like, man, I wish they'd just get off their ass and do some creature effects again, because a lot of times that's much more effective, and it seems like the people that have the vision to make the creature effects happen have the vision to make a much more horrifying visual too.
No, I would definitely agree with that.
Not across the board. I'm just saying, like, that seems to be something I observed lately.
Right. I don't hate CGI personally. It's when used correctly, it can be very effective, and every once in a blue moon, a movie will come out that uses CGI exactly the way it's supposed to be used, CGI works best mainly when it's done in quick cuts, because when you focus on something that's CGI for too long, eventually you're going to be like, that's fake, that doesn't look real. But to utilize CGI to create something that practical effects might not be able to create, or just would be very difficult to create, it's fine, but, just kind of, just don't stay on it too long, because otherwise you do sort of ruin the magic of, or the tone or the feeling of the movie or the scene. But, yeah, this new Freddy movie, it didn't really do a whole lot for me. I thought, it's not Jackie Earl Haley. Jackie
Earl Haley.
James Earl Jones? It's not James Earl Jones' fault, this movie.
Nobody's blaming you, James Earl Jones.
No, this is not your fault, buddy. Anyone starts to blame you again, you tell them to come talk to me, and I'll set them straight. No, it was lazy story. It was what they did with it just wasn't interesting at all. It was a very flat movie. I'd get more into it, but I don't want to use up all of our time.
Sure.
But yeah, so Freddy Krueger definitely is somebody. I agree with you. Stephen King's It scared the bejesus out of me when I was a little kid. I stayed up when I wasn't supposed to as well. Mom, Dad, if you're listening to this, here's an age-old secret revealed. When we were staying at Disney, I think at Dixie Landings, I was supposed to be asleep, and then my father and my brother Ryan stayed up to watch Stephen King's It on TV, but I kept my eyes open, and I watched the whole first half. And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified and didn't sleep very well that night. So, yeah, sorry I did that. But, yeah, a very similar experience that you had, just that clown is... Well, clowns are scary in general, And just to have a clown come after you with fangs and, threaten to make you float is just absolutely...
It was the appearance coupled with some of the, like, horribly ominous things he'd say. It's just like, I'll never forget, we all float down here.
Oh my God. That's awful.
Yeah.
No, absolutely terrifying. So many terrifying moments in that movie, at least that I remember. I haven't watched it in many years. I don't know how long has it been. Have you seen it recently?
I've been meaning to watch it this Halloween season.
Right.
I do own it. I want to see how it holds up. I'm sure if nothing else, Tim Curry as Pennywise is going to hold up magnificently.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it would really go anyway. Some of the other things might fall a little short, but I for the most part think that I would still be absolutely terrified by that. One other series of movies that I sort of grew up with, they're not really horror films, they're more sci-fi, but I'm going to give them a little shout out anyway. And then we can move on and talk about some recent stuff. Yeah, the Alien series.
Dude, Alien is hard.
The first,
at least the first one is absolutely a
the
horror
first
movie.
Alien is horror, and to a degree, so is the third one is to a degree as well, because it sort of brings back the elements of the first one. Second one is just a flat out science fiction action movie.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's fantastic.
Badass.
It's an absolute badass film. I grew up watching those movies. I love them to death. I think I saw them I think I saw the second one first, which I know to be your favorite of the series.
Yeah, I saw them in that. Well, I don't think the same order as you, but I saw the second one first,
Yeah.
and then I saw the first one.
I saw the second one first. I still remember to this day the very first image or scene from that movie that I saw as a little kid was Bishop talking with Ripley, and then all of a sudden the Queen Alien's tail just comes through his tail, and then he gets ripped apart. And as like a little kid just watching that, I was just kind of like, what is this? So absolutely terrifying. In fact, I think in my child's mind, I sort of remembered it initially after I saw it. I sort of remembered it as almost like the Queen Alien was emerging from him. Obviously,
Right.
that's not the case, but the mind of a child sees things differently and
Well,
recalls it.
and speaking of that, I mean, because even though it's an action movie, it's the baby of a horror movie, and there's no getting around the fact that the aliens, the xenomorph,
yeah,
they're so horrifying. And
absolutely.
that first chest bursting scene in Aliens is the first chest bursting scene I saw when, like, I think it's a woman that's like trapped in the goo along the side wall of the colony, and they find her and they're like, okay, you're gonna be okay,
Yeah, and then
Marines get her out of here, and then it's like,
nope.
And that'll always stay with me. That was,
of course,
that was a horrifying moment.
No, the concept of the birth of the alien, we've talked about this before. I think maybe I don't when we talked about Prometheus.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's a horrifying prospect for to have something attach itself to you and then lay an egg in your chest and that thing just bursts out.
It uses you up and then it kills you.
Yeah, and then it kills you. So I saw the second Aliens. I saw Aliens first, then I saw the first one, and I was kind of taken aback as a young person when I saw it because I had no idea it was going to be much slower and quieter than it was than Aliens was. But I actually really liked that because I thought it was more terrifying and much more tension filled. Not that Aliens doesn't have tension, but this was just it's classically it's referred to as the haunted house in space story. Saw those two and just grew up watching those movies. We had them recorded and I just watched them over and over again. And then Alien 3 came out in theaters, and my brother was nice enough to take me to see that in theaters. My parents were nice enough to actually let me go see that rated R
My dad
film.
took me to that one.
Thanks, Mom and Dad. Give a thank you to your father.
Absolutely, thank you, Dad. We had good folks.
Exactly. No. Alien 3, got to see that on the big screen, was fantastic. I know that's not a very popular opinion about that movie.
I like Alien 3.
I like Alien 3, and I'm even going to go as far as to say that Alien 3 is my favorite out of the Alien series.
I won't go that far, but I like Alien 3.
Right. No, most people wouldn't go that far, but I absolutely love that movie. In terms of character development and what they did with Ripley's arc and just where they took the story was absolutely fascinating, and it's just filled with so many great moments, and it gets shat upon because the legend behind the making of it is that it was just the production was fraught with problems.
Yeah.
And then there are a few scenes where the alien itself, like the special effects, are they leave a little something to be desired, but whatever, I don't care.
Well, and obviously, I think that a lot of the promotional stuff made promises that they didn't keep. Such as, like, I think there's one promotion that says, like, the aliens are coming to Earth now, and that doesn't happen at all.
Yeah, exactly. One of the first trailers was, in space, no one couldn't hear you scream, but however, on Earth,
Right.
That was disappointing. I remember that.
I think the other reason that people are so down on Alien 3 is because, everything was an escalation up till then. You had the haunted house in space, which made people throw up in the theater in 1979, which is awesome.
Oh, totally.
Then you have James Cameron came in and turned it into a big old crazy action movie, which again was great. And you can't top that. Like, where are you going to go from that?
No,
you have to go back down, which is what David Fincher had the vision to do. But he brought it way down into this bleak place, and it's artfully done. But I think a lot of people were
They weren't expecting
They weren't
that.
expecting that at all. Yeah.
No, they weren't expecting it. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, the characters of Newt and Hicks from Aliens are killed off at the beginning of this movie, and so many people were pissed about that. And I think that is actually a stroke of genius, personally, because it shows that Ripley has now lost the only two people in her life now that were just starting to become close to her, and it's a realization that she's never gonna have a life while this creature still exists, and it makes the sacrifice at the end of the movie all that much more poignant and important.
Yeah.
Because of this realization, and just the sacrifice itself is so effing beautiful, and they ruin it by making They ruined it by making Alien Resurrection,
which I still will not. I don't count that one in the same way that I don't count it before.
Yeah, that's Alien Resurrection was just a sad state of affairs.
Yeah.
Joss Whedon actually wrote that script.
Unfortunately.
Now, granted, it has been said that they changed around a lot of things, and including the final creature at the end, which is sort of an alien-human hybrid with sad puppy dog eyes. And they talked to Joss Whedon about that, and he was just like, "Yeah, I totally wrote that. Yeah, that's exactly what came out of my imagination. Of course, I didn't write that. No, in the original script, actually, that I read online years and years ago, and before the movie actually came out, it was supposed to be a giant spider xenomorph thing, which sounded absolutely terrifying. And the ending of the movie was the ship crash lands on Earth, so you do get a little time on Earth, which the series promised.
It's always teasing you with that. Like, what if these things got home?
Yeah. Well, at the end of this one of them did, and it was a giant spider/xenomorph creature, which they then had to do battle with on the ground, and whatnot. And that sounded epic and thrilling. And no, they went with the whole puppy dog-eyed mama. It reminds me of Toka and Razar from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They are babies! Masters say have fun! That's seriously what that creature reminded me of.
Yeah,
so,
I see that now that you say that.
Total disappointment. So I'd like to pretend that movie doesn't exist, but Alien 3, so many good moments in that, such great characterization, and a wonderful almost conclusion. So yeah, those are definitely two that I stuck with me during my childhood. Now let's talk about some movies that we've recently seen that we would recommend.
Let's do that.
Why don't you go ahead? What's something that you've seen recently, whether it be on Netflix or on DVD, that you would recommend?
I know I talked a little bit about The Descent last episode, which is very good if you've not seen it. Mm-hmm. Go back and listen to our last episode if you want to hear about that.
Yes!
But I would say the best horror movie I've seen in the last few years, I showed it to you recently. It's the original Wicker Man.
Yes.
Not the Nick Cage, Neil LaBute one that came out a few years ago.
How to get burned! How to get burned! How to get burned!
Which, if you want a great laugh, like pick up the riff tracks and pick up that movie, and you will have a fun old time.
You don't even need the riff tracks.
You don't really even need the riff tracks. You get Nick Cage punching women left and right.
Nick Cage
dressing up as a bear and punching women.
In a bear suit, for God's sake.
Really, I'm going to go ahead and go back on my word and just say, go pick up that one.
Oh, totally.
See Nick Cage in a bear suit.
Absolutely. Just punching women and drop-kicking Lily Sobieski. Poor Lily Sobieski, and he just kicks her into an effing wall. And oh, goodness. No, that movie is just all sorts of wrong, and just further cements my dislike for Neil LaBute. I know he's done some other good things out there.
He's a good playwright, but he really has some women issues, and they come up in such an obvious, horrible way in this movie.
Apparently. But forgetting the awfulness of that, getting back to the original one.
The original 1973 Wicker Man.
Yes.
Which, now, one really cool thing about this movie is that it stars Christopher Lee as the villain, and Christopher Lee was starring as the villain in a lot of horror movies in that time, especially the Hammer films, which kind of were almost in a way were like the trauma films of England. And he played Dracula in scores of movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
That might be a slight exaggeration, but I think up to 10 of them at least.
There's a good amount.
There's a lot of them.
There's definitely a good amount.
And there was a thing for a while where Christopher Lee was kind of becoming like a Bela Lugosi or like a Lon Chaney, where it was like that's what he was known for. He plays monsters.
Yeah. Very creepy.
Yeah, and very like kind of over the top too, though. But he's a good actor, and he gets to showcase that here because he's not a creature. He's the if you don't know, a basic summation of The Wicker Man is it takes place in Summerisle, which is an island off the coast of England that's very remote. You need to, and this is in the 70s, remember? No internets or anything. And there's a report of a missing little girl. And so a police constable flies out there with a little, like, I don't know what you call the seaplanes, the ones that,
it's like a biplane or something.
The ones that you can, like, land on the water.
Yeah, we'll just call it seaplane for the sake of argument.
Yeah, sure. And
the water plane.
The water plane.
He flew the water plane.
He goes out to Summerisle to investigate this disappearance, and all of the residents of this island are, like, super uncooperative with him.
Yes.
And give him all these, like, conflicting answers and seem to be laughing at him behind
Such
his back.
a hilarious way, too. Like, it's not like in the awful The Butte version or whatnot, where everyone's just stone cold silent and outsiders. Like, no, they absolutely...
They're almost picking on him.
They love the fact that this guy is here doing it, and they're having a laugh at him, and it's... Are you having a laugh at me?
And he finds all this, like, contradictory evidence. It seems like she's dead. It seems like she's not dead.
Yes.
And Christopher Lee plays Lord Summerisle, whose family has owned the island for generations. The other interesting thing about this movie is that the whole community of Summerisle are pagan and follow these, like, old ways that include, like, public nudity and all this stuff that makes this, like, uptight, stuffy Church of England cop very, very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And as he's investigating, he finds out there's soon going to be a harvest ceremony that they do every year, and that a sacrifice is usually required. And he starts to think, well, maybe it's a human sacrifice. And that's when things just start to go horribly wrong. You should check out The Wicker Man, even though... As my friend Greg likes to point out, it's kind of half a musical.
It's almost a musical, for God's sakes. 80% of the movie is filled with people singing and dancing in it.
There's a lot of jaunty pagan songs in the little community.
80% of the movie is filled with people.
It's not 80% of the
It's
movie.
pretty close. Peter Sellers' ex-wife.
Brett Eklund, who gets... in the buff.
Yeah, she gets in the buff. She has a song that she sings, and there's choreography that goes along with it.
She shakes her booty. It's not really choreography.
No! She starts slapping the wall and stuff like that, in rhythm to the music that she shouldn't be able to hear.
None of the songs further the narrative. There's not really any singing into the camera
they
or
don't
any of that.
further the narrative, but they do...
I'm just saying.
They do speak on elements that are in the movie.
I don't want to call it a musical because that conjures a certain image for certain people.
Yes.
It's a horror movie,
It is a horror film, but...
there's some songs in it.
It's almost a musical.
It'll be fine, though, because there's some horror happening.
There is some horror happening. It's almost a musical, though. But anyway.
Now you go. What's one you'd recommend?
I would agree with my friend Nick. He showed me that for the first time a couple days ago. I had not seen the original. I had only seen the wonderful Teddy Bear Neil LaBute version, and this original is fantastic, despite almost being a musical. I saw, let's see, what did, on the last episode, did I talk about The Innkeepers?
You did.
Yes, because I asked Sarah Paxton out on a date. Okay, 1408.
Okay, great.
1408 is my absolute recommendation. You really need to see that movie if you haven't.
Another Stephen King
one, absolutely. In fact, I'm really interested in reading the short story that the movie is based off of, because the movie itself is just so fantastic. This is probably the best mainstream horror film to come out in many years, I think, personally. It just gets everything right. The atmosphere is just so interesting and terrifying at times, and if you don't know, the story of 1408 is about a gentleman named Mike Enslin, played by John Cusack, who goes around to different hotels, haunted hotels and other various haunted sites, and he writes books about them. He doesn't actually encounter any supernatural things at any of these places, so he sort of doesn't really believe in the supernatural anymore. He says that he would like to experience something, but it just hasn't happened yet, and he just doesn't think there's anything out there. So he gets a postcard in the mail that says, "Don't stay in 1408," and it's a postcard from the Dolphin Hotel, which is in New York. So he takes the bait and he goes there, and like the general manager, played by Samuel L. Jackson, just begs and pleads them, please do not stay in 1408. It's an evil fucking room, is what Sam Jackson says.
Quote unquote.
Quote unquote. To be fair, he is exactly right. Not only is this just a room where when John Cusack goes into it, he starts to see horrific images, and like the room just starts to kind of transform, and he sees like dead people, and like windows are closing on his hand and hurting him and stuff like that. And just, it's not only that, but there is an absolutely sadistic quality to this. I mean, the room is an inanimate object, but you can sense though that it's having fun with him, and just for a full hour he just gets messed with by this room, and it's just a beautiful film and just really well done, and there's great character in it too, because the room uses things from his past to further terrify him, and it's not even just about scaring him either. It's about breaking his spirit,
Right.
and just making him want to just end it all. So it isn't just about, I'm going to terrify him. It's about just making this guy just want to, just kill himself. And again, for my money, 1408, recommend it highly. It's fantastic. You should definitely take a look at it.
It's a very good movie. I did see it once a little while ago.
Yeah.
I think that's a good recommendation.
I think it really caught me off guard, because I had seen it years before as well, and I remember liking it. I thought it was a decent film. And seeing it again, I was just like, this is more than a decent film. This is a really well-made movie. So I'd be interested to see that director make some other scary movies, because he did a great job with that one, so hopefully he would do a good job with the other ones.
I know we're getting close to time, but here, let's just fire off a couple other recommendations here real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just real quick, a couple other things I've seen recently or would recommend. Well, I wouldn't recommend this one to everyone. There's a very dark movie called Dead Girl that I saw on Netflix recently.
Mm-hmm.
And the story is basically that these loser guys in high school, they break into an asylum and they find this girl strapped down.
Right.
With a plastic wrap over her. And they pull the wrap up and she starts to breathe. But through horrific means, they find out that she can't be killed. And they kind of keep her down there as their personal sex slave.
Oh.
Once again, this is a horror movie. This is not PC, and
we're not recommending that anyone do this.
No, of course not. But it brings up a lot of interesting, horrific things, because they end up, like, it's supposed to be a secret just between the two guys, and then some of their friends get invited, and then jocks find out and beat them up and want to see this dead girl. And it gets to really, of course, it starts off in really dark, creepy places.
Right.
But there's kind of, I don't want to give anything away, but there ends up kind of being justice for this, what is essentially like a zombie.
Right.
It's like a zombie sex slave that they keep down there.
Ooh.
Really creepy and interesting. Of course, if that repulses you, like, don't watch that movie at all. Another, you know what?
What's that?
Jumping back real quick to, like, something from my youth. I exposed you to this at one point. This is not a good movie, but it's good bad enough for me to recommend it here.
Okay.
If you can find it, there's a movie called The Pit.
Yeah.
The Pit.
Yes.
The Pit is an 80s movie that I saw one afternoon as I was helping my mom set up for, like, a Halloween birthday party, and it's not very well made, but just some horrific things happening. It's this antisocial little boy who talks to his teddy bear, and his teddy bear is basically, like, telling him dark, evil things.
Yep.
And aside from all that, like, he's not a murderous little boy or anything, or at least he hasn't murdered anyone yet. He goes out into the woods and he finds this pit. And there are these horrible, evil ape creatures living in the pit, and he has no idea why. And he ends up calling them, I think he calls them troglodytes, off of what that H.G. Wells Time Machine story.
Right.
And he figures out that they're carnivorous because he brings them food, and they want to eat meat.
Mm-hmm.
And then he figures out, well, hey, this is a pit in the middle of nowhere. How about I lure all these people I don't like and who pick on me at school? I lure them out into the pit and I shove them in. And that's what he does for like 90 minutes. It's really messed up and really cool. And once again, it's not a terribly well-made movie, But I think they were onto something. That's a really horrible, horrifying concept. And I really like that one.
Right.
And then the last one I'll say anything about is just because I recommend this anytime I talk about horror movies and underappreciated ones. I really love The Ninth Gate, which it's by Roman Polanski. It's by the same director as Rosemary's Baby, which is a horror classic.
Yeah.
It's got Johnny Depp kind of right before he made his big comeback. Because he was kind of he wasn't out of the game, but he was like underappreciated for a few years. He hadn't blown up to where he's like in every movie like now.
Exactly.
And it's about a rare book dealer who is commissioned to find the original Satanic Bible, which is supposed to be penned by Satan himself. And he has no interest in it, other than that it's a job. And as he gets closer and closer to solving the mystery, he kind of gets closer and closer to evil.
Right.
I think it's really interesting, really intriguing. Check it out.
No, it's definitely a fun little movie. I liked it too. I have issues with the ending. I know we've talked about that.
Yeah,
but no, overall though, it's a fun ride and it's a very interesting movie. A few that I would throw out there. Mimic by Guillermo del Toro, more of a creature feature than an actual horror film, but it's about giant cockroaches essentially, but it's actually really well done. So Guillermo del Toro has
it's a name you can trust. Guillermo del Toro.
It's an absolute name you can trust. So Mimic is definitely a good one to take a look at. A few that you should avoid would be Burnt Offerings.
Oh yeah, we were going to talk about this.
Yeah, Burnt Offerings is one that is available on Netflix Instant Watch, and you should not watch it because it is very boring. And it has a stupid ending.
It does. It was. Both of those things are true.
It's a very boring movie with a stupid ending.
Despite starring Oliver Reed, who's awesome.
Yeah, the fantastic Oliver Reed and Karen Black, who went on to play Mother Firefly in House of a Thousand Corpses. Right. No, it's just a boring movie. It kind of deals with like a house and a possession and sort of the house regenerating itself as bad things happen to good people. And it was very, very boring, and so yeah, you can kind of skip that one, but some definite recommendations for this Halloween would be 1408, for me rather, and Mimic are two really good ones that you should watch, and then the ones that Nick has talked about too are fantastic as well. So yeah, I think we're going to wrap up this little episode here. Did you have anything else you wanted to add before we...
From now on, this Halloween, all words that start with the letter H will now begin with the letter M. Mappy Malloween.
I'm your host, Greg McIver, and this is...
Nicky Boom Boom.
We'll see you next time.
This has been a production of the Nerdtopiacast Internet Network. Be sure to check out more podcasts, videocasts, and articles at nerdtopiacast.com.